Hello and welcome to the Yorkshire Rows. I'm currently at anchor in Florida. It's a very windy day today, and there's lots of powerboaters going by. So I hope that you can hear the audio on this. Today I would like to talk to you guys about the parts of a sailboat. Now, when we're sailing, it's really important that we refer to specific parts. So rather than saying grab that blah 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 blah, we have to say grab that boom or grab that tiller. And each part of the sailboat has a specific name, and we should try and get in the good habit of using it, because then we can communicate effectively. And as we know, communication is very important in sailing. So today we're going to talk about the specific sailing parts. Now, there's quite a lot of different sail parts, and it's quite difficult to remember them all at once. So don't worry if you can't remember all of them today. They'll come bit by bit. Maybe just try and remember 4 or 5 parts for now. I'm going to start off with the basics, and then I'm going to go into some of the slightly more advanced parts. So if you're a sailor who's already been with us at Jackson Park, you might be able to follow some of the slightly more advanced stuff. And if you're a beginner sailor and you can't remember all these parts, don't worry, just remember what you can, okay? So, a sailboat. There are lots of different types of sailboats. Generally, all sailboats have one hull, and the hull is this big bathtub looking thing here. It's the main body of the boat. It's the bit that everything else attaches to, and it's also the bit that you sit in when you're sailing. Generally, most sailboats have just one hull. You do get some sailboats that look like this, called catamarans, that have 2 hulls that are connected to each other, and it helps balance the boat a little bit. But generally, most boats have one hull. That's the blue big body of the boat here. All sailboats tend to have this tree trunk object coming up here, which we call the mast of the sailboat. The sails, both the sails, will attach to this mast here. Going horizontally across from the mast, we have this thing here in green. It's another bar that helps attach the sails together. We name it after the sound it makes when it hits your head. It's called the boom. So we have the hull, the big body of the sailboat, the mast going up, and then we have across the boom. There are 2 types of sails, generally speaking, on a sailboat. There's the mainsail. We call that the mainsail because it's the biggest sail, and it's the sail that gives us the main propulsion. Remember, a sailboat is always powered by the wind, and it's the mainsail, it's the biggest sail. And then we have this little sail at the front of the boat, which is called the jib. Generally, this is the kind of classic setup. Some boats will have a huge sail right at the front, like this, which we call a spinnaker. But generally speaking, most boats have a mainsail and they have a jib. Now, in order to steer the boat, we have this fin here. You see, it looks a little bit like a fish's tail. That's the thing that will actually steer the boat through the water, and we call that the rudder. The thing that controls the rudder will be this bar going across here. We call that the tiller. So the rudder is here, and this bar across here is called the tiller. Most of the smaller sailing boats, the dinghy sailing boats, are going to be steered with a tiller. But if you look at some of those really big boats or those old pirate ships, they're steered with what? They're steered with a wheel, aren't they? They'll have a big wheel here instead that will control the rudder. So there we are. Now, I told you it was a windy day. We have here the centerboard. So that's a board that comes right down through the center of the boat, and that means that when you're sailing along, it stops the boat from sliding sideways. It helps to give the boat forward momentum, so when the force hits these sails, instead of the boat sliding away wherever the wind wants to blow it, it helps to glide the boat through the water. So that's called the centerboard. The other term for it is sometimes the keel, they call it on a bigger boat. And again, you get different types of keels. You get what we have here is like a fin keel, but you also get a long keel like this, which we call like a draft keel or a long keel. The reason I'm telling you the different types of keels and sails you get is because we're going to play a game pretty soon in which you guys are going to draw a boat with different types of boat parts. But that's the basics. So I'm going to do a very quick recap, okay? We have the hull, the big body of a boat. We have the mast, which is like the tree trunk that sticks right up. Then we have this horizontal stick, which is called the boom, because that's the sound it makes when it hits your head. We have the mainsail here, the big mainsail that gives the boat most of its propulsion. And then here we have a jib, okay, the sail at the front of the boat. Sometimes instead of a jib, you might have an even bigger sail, like on the RS Fevers that we're excited about sailing this summer. And that's called a spinnaker, a huge, huge sail going right out. It's like a big kite at the front of the boat. We have the rudder, which is like the fish's tail that helps steer the boat through the water. And then to control the rudder, generally we have a tiller, or we might have, if it's a big old pirate ship, you might have a wheel. Then we have the centerboard here. That's to stop the boat from sliding from side to side when the wind is hitting it. Instead, because of the centerboard, when the wind hits the sail, it's going to keep the boat gliding through the water. Now, we're going to add a few extra bits, okay? So, the mainsail tends to be controlled from the boom by a piece of line. We call it line because there's no rope on boats, but basically it looks a lot like rope. A piece of line here called the main sheet. The main sheet. That's what we use to pull in the sail or to let the sail out. The jib is controlled by what, do you think? The jib sheet. So the jib will have a piece of line going from here and going from here, so we can control the jib with jib sheets. In order to pull up the sail, we have another type of line called the halyard. So pink here will have a jib halyard, and orange here we have a main halyard. That's an old, combination of two old English words. Yard was another word that sailors would use for rope, because there's no rope on boats. And haul, the word haul, is an old sailor word for haul, pull up the sails. So it's the yard that we use for hauling up the sails. So when we start sailing, the sails are normally down here, but we pull the halyards, we haul the yard, and that brings the sails up. To control the boom, we have what's called a boom vang, or in England we call it a kicking strap. And that is, I'm going to pick another colour, keep it nice and colourful for you guys. Here. That stops the boom from kind of bouncing up and down. And we'll talk maybe in another lesson in a little bit more detail about how that works. When we're on a boat, we don't talk about left and right, front and back. We talk about what? I wonder if some of you guys know watching. We talk about, I'm going to do a little bird's eye view here. We talk about the starboard side here, and we talk about the port side. Port is a drink that sailors like to drink sometimes, and it's a red colour, so we can draw a little red here. And generally in sailing they'll actually be represented by red and green. So we have the starboard side and the port side. Then we have the bow of the boat up here, bow, and we have the stern of the boat, which is the back of the boat. Call it the stern of the boat because if you fall off the back of the boat, in our sailing program we're going to give you a stern look. So we call that the stern. And the bow. And the port side and the starboard side. It's important to remember that because we don't always know which way we're going to be facing. So if I'm facing backwards on the boat and I say, pull that in on the left hand side, which left are we talking about if somebody is facing me? So the reason we refer to specific sides of the boat like this is because we might be anywhere on the boat facing any direction. So we don't use the word left and right, we talk about the starboard side, represented by this little green star here, and the port side. An easy way to remember that is that port, like left, has how many letters? 4 letters. And the easy way to remember that it's red is because that's the colour of port, the drink that old pirates used to drink. Okay, so I think that's the basics for you guys. If you click on the link below, there's a little game that we're going to play, which will help us remember all of these sailboat parts. And you guys are going to imagine that you're stuck on a desert island and you have to build your own sailboat. And we're going to toss a coin each time to decide what sort of sailboat it's going to be. So click on the link below this video and we'll play a little game. I hope you're all keeping well. I hope you found this informative. There's also going to be in the link in the comment section a little diagram for you guys that outlines all of this, and that'll help you guys remember, hopefully, all the parts of the sailboat. But yes, thank you for watching. Greetings from aboard the Yorkshire Rose, and I really look forward to seeing all of you guys this summer.